This talk is slightly different from the synopsis for reasons I hope will emerge, but it's kind of, since I've supplied the synopsis, there's sort of quite almost spooky information made available to me, which has changed the whole thing, but it's a practical demonstration of the concept. So are you ready to?
All good.
Oh, there we go. In 1974, I was invited to become a study group member as I had been working on pottery from Philip Barker's excavations on the Basilica site of Wroxeter, Roman city. I had previously completed a numerical analysis of pottery from Phil's excavations at Hendom and Montgomery, a Motte Bailey castle. The Wroxeter material provided an opportunity to apply a similar method to material from a different type of site. Wroxeter Roman City, a guardianship monument in the care of the Ministry of Public Buildings and Works since 1947, has since 1859 seen a number of excavation campaigns. Phil Barker's work began in 1966 as a small-scale clearance excavation on a site intended for a custodian's house. No, I think it's jumped. Sorry. Okay. No. There's a slide missing. I'll just get to go basket. Phil's excavation technique and recording methods evolved while working on medieval timber buildings. He recovered ephemeral evidence of red timber structures, and there was supposed to be a slide showing the timber structures. I don't know where it's disappeared. These were then thought to date to the late 4th and 5th centuries or later and considered groundbreaking. The custodian's house was abandoned and the area of excavation expanded. Over the next 20 years, the project evolved into a large-scale annual 6 to 8 week research excavation involving a management group of around 20 people and a team of up to 100 diggers. Drawing of the site plans, publications and other post-excavation work, processing and drawing finds and pottery was routinely done on-site during each excavation season. Excavation funding and planning, pre-map 2, here as everywhere else, was done ad hoc on an annual basis. In 1982, when English Heritage became a quango, the funding allocation for the Guardianship Monument Estate gradually reduced, and so by 1986 to 99, the excavation became smaller scale. The extended site covered an area 140 metres by 40 metres, with the site grid divided into 10 metre squares, subdivided into 5 metre squares to do site planning, and into 16 2.5 metre squares for finds recording. The assumption was that pottery found in the latest archaeological layers would be mainly residual or redeposited, making it hard to detect the tiny percentage contemporary with that layer. The site's detailed recording system made it possible to identify The site's detailed pottery recording system made it possible to aim to identify these, and this was the recording strategy that was adopted. It was hoped that this analysis would make it possible to better understand the occurrence, sequence and dating of all the pottery types present at each phase of the occupation, not just that presumed to be contemporary with the phase of excavation. And also this would contribute to site interpretation. Processing was done during each annual excavation season, either on site or at a find store nearby. There was a large quantity of pottery each year, and progress was slow. Computing technology was in its early stages at the time, but there was an interest in using archaeological data to develop computer applications. To explore the potential to computerize the recording system, Phil contacted Sue Laflin Barker in the Birmingham University Computing Department, and she became involved in the project. access to personal computers was comparatively rare then, but Sue was able to bring a Commodore PET on site. Using it, the pottery data could be recorded directly onto cassette tapes. The data did then need to be transferred to punch cards to use on the university mainframe, and this was slightly inefficient, but it did speed up recording. Then other issues intervened. The project stalled when I took a full-time job in 1976 and had to drop out. Coincidentally, a new guardianship inspector had taken over the site management. They thought that the pottery from the latest layers of the site was unstratified, and the detailed recording of it was unnecessary, and the project funding was cut. Time passed, and the post-1976 excavation pottery remained unprocessed. The project was revived when a new guardianship inspector in 1981 recognised that the post-1976 material would need to be added to the existing data set. Funding for a full-time contract was found, and I was able to be involved in the project management of the work. The appointee was Stephen Pierpoint, a PhD student working on breakage and abrasion as indications of redeposition of pottery from John Collis's excavations at Aylesbury. He began work in mid-1971 and straight away hit a fairly basic snag. Birmingham University's mainframe computer had been upgraded. Before the 1972 to 76 database could be accessed, it needed conversion for use on the new system. Sue, with some of her postgraduate students, working with Stephen, successfully made the transfer. Stephen was then able to begin to add the 1975 to 83 pottery to the existing database. He added new types of fabric and form to the type series as they emerged, but he also added value by incorporating his own system of recording sherd size and abrasion. By mid-1984, a 140-page draft report with a fabric and form type series of 125 pages was completed. This, together with a printout of the database, is now part of the English Heritage Site Archive. With no paid archaeological work in prospect, Stephen took a job at Shell Oil in headquarters on the South Bank. His undoubted skills were lost to archaeology, and there was another project hiatus. While other post-excavation work was making progress towards publication, nothing more was done on the pottery from the 1984 to 89 excavations. Before a final pottery catalogue and publication report could be prepared, the computer database needed to have this pottery added to it. So, in late 1989, a contract was awarded to AD Services archaeological consultants in the Robin Simmons, Andy Roper, Sue Wade and Fran Buxton. To gain access to the existing computerized database, add the pottery from these later excavations to it, then to complete both the site archive and the publication report. This involved more technology chasing. Fortunately, Sue Laughlin was able to work with Andy Roper to resolve the various computer transition problems so the work could continue. And if there are any computer buffs who would like to know the details of all these transfers, they are available online from a web managed by the Computer Applications in Archaeology conference. So if you're mad keen, you can find the details of how the transfers were made. AD Services were not able to physically access the pottery from the two previous stages of catalogue work in order to re-evaluate and update the original fabric type series, which was based on the original 1972 standards of classification and predated the Tomber and Door and National Fabric Type series. The new material was integrated into the existing fabric and form classifications with additions and modifications made wherever necessary, and the existing fabric type series was organised into 9 fabric groups. At a time when long pottery reports tended to appear in microfiche at best, archive for preference, the AD Services report, completed in 1991 and published in 1997, is remarkably full and well illustrated. It runs to 50 pages with a detailed fabric and form type series, numerical data, analysis and discussion, and it compares with 25 pages devoted to a synopsis of all the other artifactual finds, including the coins. However, it also has these caveats. Priority had been given to material from the site levels contemporary with the Basilica occupation. The pottery post-dating these levels was not evaluated in the detail originally planned. On-site distribution results form only a few pages of the published report, and the data Stephen recorded on sherd size and abrasion was not used at all. When completed, the catalogued pottery totalled 118,107 sherds of pottery with a recorded weight of 1.4 tonnes, comprising 114 separate fabric types. This was a deliberate over-division because you can amalgamate but you can't divide. Overall, including Samian, Mortaria and Amphora, 1,297 forms are described and illustrated. And that's a table of the contents. This site phase is intended to help you to orientate, because I'm now going to show you some distribution sites which I only became aware of about 6 weeks ago, and I hope you find them as interesting as I do. So, I haven't seen these in a large scale before. Right, these are distribution plots of all the material from a particular phase of the occupation, regardless of type, and that's the total count. This is what is believed to be the latest. Oh no, sorry, that's it. This is believed to be the latest phase of occupation, and it's heavily has heavy concentrations, whereas the two preceding phases have very sparse specific distributions. And I actually lost my place. Right, the plots that we've just seen on phases Y, X, and Z are in marked contrast to each other. The plots from phase W, which are the next level down, combine the pottery from 3 sub-phases. The floor of sub-phase 1 contained a coin dated to AD 367 to 75, and the Basilica is thought to have been derelict by sub-phase 3. There's a marked contrast with the phase X and Y distribution. But the individual fabric plots for the 7 value ware and the black varnished ware, although they're similar, there are issues with the 7 value ware. Right. Plots of the overall distribution of the 2 wares differ. Originally, they both formed substantial percentages of the total pot assemblage, Combined, they form 49.16% by count and 55.24% by weight. Petrological analysis of the some 7 valueware samples from the site, done by Roberta Tomber as part of her 1981 MSc project, suggests they are untypical and may be late and of local origin. This plot combines both the local, potentially late 7wares and any that were potentially traditional earlier 7 valuewares, whereas the black burnished ware pottery is likely to be among the latest in use on the site. These histograms seem to show little overall difference between the 2 wares, but the conflation within the redware types makes the redware potentially misleading. The early and late forms of black burnished ware seem to show similar phase distribution patterns, but these tracking of the occurrence of specific forms do seem to show that there are chronological differences in the way that the pots are distributed through the site, through the phases on the site. Right. These histograms, compiled from a database of 99,000 records, and they actually appear in the publication. They were used. The records were used to calculate the proportions of fabric by phase for each of the fabric groups that AD Services divided the fabric groups into. Each individual group does show a distinctive pattern of distribution by phase, possibly with chronological implications. However, without knowing the relative proportions of each ware within the total assemblage, their relationships and relevance to each other is not clear. The overall percentages of each pottery type and their distribution are compared in the next few slides. So the fine... Oh God. It's okay. I can rattle through it. Sorry, where am I up to? Oh, right, the white wares and other fine wares are very small percentages overall, with a sparse, probably redistributed distribution. So these areas are potentially made up from redeposited material. The grey wares with the larger overall percentage have a remarkably similar on-site distribution. The same percentage is larger, but the distribution plot suggests it's also that is mainly road build-up and resurfacing, and that's all redeposited material. And that's where it mainly comes from. The histogram compares the occurrence of the samian with those of Nene Valley, Oxford, Wesmore, Terrier, and other big beaker types, which all have a peak in phase X, which is reasonably, well, it's post the coin dating in phase W. Oxford and Nene Valley ware percentages overall are similar, but their site distributions differ markedly. Calcite gritted wares and grey ware percentages are similar, but again have very different site distributions. The grey ware presence in later phases is similar to white wares and fine wares and suggests redisposition. Oh, is that right? Calcite gritted wares have a different chronological pattern by phase, and like 7 Valley wares and black burnished wares, may be among the latest to remain available in use. It's already been suggested that further work on the Wroxeter Barker pottery database could produce useful results. Since 2018, 120 plus samples from the site have been carbon-14 dated for English heritage. Publications in preparation, but preliminary results suggest that the major remodelling of the site should now be dated to around AD 380, with the site abandonment circa 350. This is very different from the published interpretation of the site monograph. And this may provide a reason and an opportunity to revisit the material. The sequence of site events remains unchanged, as does how each phase relates to them, but the dating of the sequence as originally published and how finds evidence integrates with the new dating structure needs revision. There have been enormous technological changes between now and the archive's inception, giving plenty of justification to update and modernise the data. This February's Current Archaeology published a note of a geographical information system project using Barry Cunliffe's early Fishbourne site archive, and this suggests a potential way forward. GIS combines maps and data to analyse and understand geographical information, allowing for the creation, management and evaluation of spatial data to specific locations, and can enhance visualisation. The format also has the potential to increase the accessibility of data and encourage and enable future engagement. Inspired by the article, Roger White and I are in contact with the Reading University PhD student involved and are discussing the potential to apply GIS to the Wroxeter Barker database and the site archive with them. This could not just give the Pottery database a shot in the arm, but other aspects of the site archive much added value. Watch this space.